Good morning. I'm going to be giving you a high level or high altitude overview of this session. And well, this is going to be kind of a trip that will bring us to 19th century Halifax to 21st century Alberta. And we're going to be passing by some places in Spain, Italy, Norway, and then we're going to end peering a little into the future. And so I hope that this trip will whet your appetite for the following talks in this session. And well, in particular, this is what I'm going to be talking about. And let's start. So there are a lot of acronyms for drones. This is the most used, but there are others like UAS, RPV, ROA, but lately, or since not recently, Transport Canada has changed once more their rules, and they had changed also the preferred acronym. So I think that, as Ron put in his slide, we should scratch UAV and start using this, because I think that the reason they are using this acronym AirPass is because it kind of forces you to think that there is a person responsible for piloting safely the aircraft. And actually the next two talks are going to be dealing with that. Now some history. So I used to say that this image was the first aerial photo taken from an unmanned platform. Was taken from a kite that had a camera, and then this was done in 1889 by this Arthur Batu, a French photographer. And I have been saying that for at least 3 or 4 years, but a couple of years ago, in the Canadian Symposium on Remote Sensing in Saskatoon, I listened to a delightful talk by Dirk Verle, and he showed us that actually the first UAV photo ever was taken in Canada, in Halifax, over the Halifax Citadel. So this was done by a royal engineer, Henry Elsdale, and he used an unmanned balloon. So this, we can say, is the very first photo taken from an unmanned platform, circa 1882. So that's quite a while ago in Halifax. So just for curiosity, why we call this unmanned aircraft drones? Well, apparently the British Navy had these pilotless planes. This model was called the Havilland Queen Bee, and they were used as target planes. So they would fly, and there would be a bunch of guys with machine guns trying to shoot down the aircraft. So an American admiral watched one of these demonstrations, and then he entrusted Commander Dermer Farney to develop something similar for the U.S. Navy. And later, in 41 or 42, they started using it. It was called the DDR-1, and it was the torpedo drone. So the name drone came in homage to this earlier British model that was the Queen Bee. So the Queen Bee and the others were the drone, also because that other model, the DDR-1, would be piloted from a mother plane that would fly above the guy, and the other guy would be used like a kamikaze attack. So, but it didn't work very well. So, yeah, the evolution of these drones has been heavily military driven, and you've seen this movie, The Bridge of Spies, this incident in the 60s. Well, there was this pilot with a high altitude flying U-2 that was downed by the Soviet, and this guy was taken prisoner. and that incident started saying, well, we need to use drones to complete this mission more safely for us. So there were a lot of advances, but probably the most significant is the miniaturization of these GPS receivers and the inertial navigation system that allowed to put this technology into a model aircraft. And from there on, there was an upswing. There was in 1996 a Stanford PhD student that used this technology and showed that an aircraft can take off, fly a specified course, and land automatically without having to spend millions of dollars. That was the case before. And so that was kind of the start of the modern drone era. So now we come to the 2010s, and we have two main companies that, but the first one, DJI, that I guess that most of you that are already familiar with drones know, they hold more than half of the market. And the market is getting bigger and bigger. So by 2020, apparently the projection is that there are going to be over 6 million commercial drones. We're not talking of these toy drones, commercial drones operating across the world. So now let's go through a 5-minute crash course on drones. There are two types of drone, as you know, fixed wing, rotary wing. They have some pros and cons. Well, the fixed wing are basically can cover more area than the rotary, but the copters are more flexible. They can launch from anywhere, and they are, well, they can hover. They have a, so depending on what your needs are, you may choose one or the other. Or if you can afford both, go for it. So the typical drone acquisition is you in the lab, there is a flight planning software that, well, DJI has its own, but there are many. So you can, in a GIS, basically you can draw your lines where the drone is going to fly. You have to, well, the software is going to ask you for what overlap you want and a number of other things, the altitude, etc. So you're going to have that prepare and before you go to the field. Then you go to the field to your drone. So this will be your flight plan with your flight lines, and then you go to the field, you set up your ground station, this white dot there, and you launch your drone from there. And the drone is going to go to the start point, and it's going to do this grid. And when it finishes, well, it's going to land. Well, you are going to land it, and then, well, you bring your data and you start your photogrammetric processing. Sensors. So drones can carry a variety of sensors. Now, when I was preparing this talk, I just learned that there is a Canadian company called Centroid or something like that from Ontario. They carry chemical sensors. So basically, they have a sniffing drone that can detect a variety of chemicals. So it's very wide, the assortment of sensors that you can mount. But the most common one are cameras and other active sensors like LiDAR. In this case, I'm showing you here a DJI Inspire 2 with a Centera multispectral camera. This is what we have in our lab. And well, that's, well, since, okay. This is LiDAR for UAV. So again, thanks to miniaturization of things, now there are LiDAR instruments that are as small as this one and as light as 2.5 kilos. So that can be carried in a drone, and well, and with that you can do a lot of things, like this. So this is this company that is not the same as the previous one. They have a software that you can see in real time what the instrument is acquiring. So this, or at least, is deemed to be the drone capturing in real time. I'm sorry that you cannot see it because of the lights very well, but well, basically you go with your LiDAR and it's gonna be like an aircraft, but because you are flying much lower, you have a much higher point density. So once you have your 3D model, you can explore it, you can dive into the forest, go inside, and see that you have an amazing point density both in the ground and even the stems of the trees. So you see in the end when you zoom in close enough that each of these ends is simply a point. And this is the guy that did this job, landing. And you can see there the LiDAR instrument. Sweet. Okay. So if 100 of points per square meter looks impressive, now enter digital aerial photogrammetry, or DAP for short, point clouds. These are the kind of 3D models of point clouds that you can derive from drone photogrammetry. And basically you derive these using a bunch of overlapping photos with a lot of overlap. This is something you have to remember. The more overlap, the better. You cannot fail with a 90% overlap. So it's good to have a lot of overlap. So there is, from a decade ago, a new framework in computer vision that is called structure from motion, and this has been implemented into a number of softwares, Agisoft, Pix4D. There is also some free software that does this. So basically you bring all your photos and the software is gonna align them, even if you didn't have location information in your photos, the software is able to align it and convert it into a 3D model. And the advantage, one advantage of these point clouds compared to the other for LiDAR is that each point has a color. So you can use this information for classification and other purposes. And so this is a nice graph by Tristan Kupadi, who is gonna be talking later today. And just comparing the two type of point clouds. Basically, the LiDAR point clouds have more penetration, so you are gonna have way more ground points. And the other are normally denser, and they have, as I said, color. So they have trade-offs. But of course, the photogrammetric one are normally much cheaper than the LiDAR. So now that we know a little about drones and the kind of data they provide, let's look into forest-related applications. So we're going to be talking about forest inventory, forest health, fire, and reclamation. And yeah, forest harvest is yet not an application. This is a joke. Okay. Okay. So forest inventory. This is one of the pioneer works in forest inventory. Basically, these authors, Stefano Puliti and others, demonstrated that using a photogrammetric point cloud, you can achieve the same accuracy as if you had a LiDAR point cloud using this area-based approach. So you have a number of forest inventory plots for which you have the reference value of your forest attribute. You create models that can be simple linear regressions, and then you can use those models to create wall-to-wall forest attribute maps. So this was shown in 2015, and Francesca Gianetti and Puliti and others have recently shown that normally one of the limitations we thought that photogrammetric point clouds have is that you had to normalize what we call normalized them. So basically, you have a X, Y set of a point, and you had to subtract the ground elevation to get the actual elevation over the ground of each point. They had shown in this paper that the point cloud doesn't even need to be normalized, so you do the same thing. I mean, they do a relative normalization using set scores, but without the ground information, without an ALS DEM, the digital elevation model from an airborne LiDAR, you can still achieve very good accuracy. And these are the example, place in Norway, place in Italy, a lot of slope in the Italy place, and you can see this is the standard, the gold standard LiDAR, airborne LiDAR, and this is normalizing using the airborne LiDAR, and this is without any normalization. So you see that the results are very good. Just to let you know that Tristan is going to be talking more about this in the afternoon. So forest health is another application for drones, and this study that I'm showing, which by the way is co-authored by one of the speakers in this technical session, Udaya, was done in Catalonia, which is still part of Spain, I think, and shows that the foliation estimates for centimetric, so 1.5 or 2 centimeters ground sampling distance, orthophotos can derive robust defoliation estimates for in this case is the pine processionary moth, but it could be any defoliating insect. They had shown that we can use drone photogrammetry for this. In this case, they only used the orthophotos. They didn't use any information from the point cloud, but I believe that the point cloud could carry also some information because the density of points in areas defoliated is going to differ from healthy tree crowns. Fire. So this was one, if not the first paper of application of drones for fire, and is co-authored, in addition to Ron, is co-authored by yet another speaker in this talk, Urian, that is going to be talking later today. And so here they showed that, they created a number of plots where they measure burn severity from the ground, this CBI, and then they related it to metrics derived from either drone photogrammetry or Landsat, and they showed that there are good correlations, there are good square between these ground data and both the drone and the satellite, and between the satellite and the drone. So this is a nice example of how you can use the drones to scale up information. And finally, in this ends this trip that took us from Halifax to Alberta. This paper is in the in situ oil sand. Sorry. Greg McDermott, again, a person that is going to talk later today, is going to be talking about these applications. So, to sum up, there are some pros of drones in regards of logistics, environment, role. So it's cheap, it's very flexible, and you can use it as a sampling tool for rapid assessment of a number of things. It has some drawbacks, and yeah. I'll let you read that, because I had to wrap up, and this is the last slide. So, into the future. So there's going to be an increase of payload autonomy and real data time processing. As I said, there is a number of sensors that are available for drones. And once we believe that down the road, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, maybe or who knows when, but we are going to have beyond line of sight, no longer have that restriction of having to see the drone all the time. And then this is going to allow a bunch of more applications that are going to go beyond sampling. And yeah, so, and joining this with artificial intelligence, we're going to have drones that are going to be able to perform missions in a very autonomous way. And that was all I had to say today. Thank you.